care about current affairs, it's on the OShow.
Welcome to the OShow, Canada's current affairs show with strong opinions, and it's the Scandal panel. The boys are back, and there couldn't be a better day for it. We have, of course, huge international news in terms of the phone call between Mark Carney and Donald Trump that we're going to get to. We have Alberta's premier doing some shady shit. And we're going to talk about that, the betrayal of our country, not just in the US visit she just had, but the way she's trying to strong-arm Carney. And Pierre Poilievre, not only are his polls tanking in a way that I can't even believe, but we saw this stupid new attempt at a scandal by them today, which just goes to show how desperate they are. There's a ton going on with, of course, the sort of Damocles of the tariffs dropping on Canada anytime, maybe, maybe not. Who knows? That's why we've got the experts here to talk about it all, including, for those Ontario fans, some wisdom from Ford's guide to Poilievre that Poilievre doesn't seem to be following, but we'll get to all of that. So as always, we've got Mark Cripps, who was a former editor of a newspaper, as well as, of course, worked at the Ministry of Housing in Ontario and others. And we've got Keith Leslie. He is the veteran Queen's Park reporter. And so, Keith, as always, when we're looking at a full docket of news and stories to discuss here on the Scandal panel, I'm going to start with you. But just before I do, I just want to thank our audience. The show is blowing up. The clips are blowing up. And our subscribers are going up and up and up. Let's get to 5,000 subscribers. This is an important conversation. It couldn't be more important than a Canadian election, but you know, it's going to be a long road with the Trump administration. So subscribe, share it with your friends. Let's get a good Canadian conversation getting stronger and stronger. On that note, Keith Leslie, where would you like to begin, my journalist friend?
Well, of course, I mean, there's just no way around it. The lead story today and every day is Donald Trump. And of course, that's just the reality we live in. I think it was Jon Stewart said it's Trump's world and we're all cowering in it. But it was Trump, of course, having the phone call with Mark Carney, whom he described as Prime Minister Mark Carney, not governor, talking about how the two countries, the United States and Canada, would be made great by the deals we're going to strike. No mention of Canada being, a 50%. None of that stuff. Talk about a change in tone. Holy cow. It sounds like, and again, we won't even hear from Mr. Carney until a couple hours after we're recording this podcast. But from Donald Trump, and I don't think I've ever said this before, he's described it as a normal kind of leaders introducing themselves to each other kind of meeting. And it sounds like that's just what it was, where they appeared to find a little bit of common ground. We're going to work on this and this and talk. And this is Donald Trump's version of it. Since when have we relied on Donald Trump's version of anything and thought that it was accurate? So I'm sure Mr. Carney's going to have his version of this thing, but I suspect Mr. Trump has been kind of truthful and straight with us on this one point. So that's really, really encouraging, if nothing else. I mean,
let me update the conversation. The Liberal Party put out a statement. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to see it, reflecting the outcome of the meeting from Carney's perspective. And what I love about this, I mean, it's a boss move, right? He said, I will not talk to Donald Trump until he shows respect for this country, calls me Prime Minister in Canada. And then yesterday, Carney had the I'll say it, the brass balls to say our relationship with America is over, which was headlines around the world at the same time that Macron in France was talking about a similar breakaway from America. It looked like an ultimate coordinated power play. And then today we had, as you just characterized it, Keith, Trump saying how productive it was and how they agree on business and how they talked business, as though Carney, once he got the respect from Trump, talk to him like a businessman, which Trump, of course, would love. And then Carney put out a statement, but this is what I love. It wasn't Carney jumping to Twitter like Trump did or jumping to the cameras. He's having a serious meeting with Team Canada, with his leads, right? He is literally meeting with his team before he comes out. But what the statement said was almost the same as what Trump's tweet said, which was they had a productive conversation, that Mark Carney looks forward to earning the vote of the Canadian people and then meeting with Trump going forward on their relationship. Very high level. I don't want to, very demure. It was, but it was impressive. It was like watching two business leaders, Mark, actually have a rational, predictable meeting. Now, who knows what'll happen in the next 10 minutes with Trump, but for the moment, what was your reaction?
Well, I think an important line in Trump's social media post was that he looks forward to working with Carney after the election's over. And I thought to myself, okay, so he's obviously, so some might construe that as like that's damaging to Carney. Now it's Trump's on Carney's side, so that gives Poilievre the advantage now. It gives him the, but what it really does for I think for most people is like elbows up, but our handshake is still out, right? Like, like if there's a deal to be had, and if you're going to treat us respectfully, we will respond accordingly. But yesterday's press conference I believe, set the tone of today up. Carney was a master yesterday, at answering the questions thoughtfully. He was passionate. And I honestly, like, I mean, sure, I'm voting for him. So, maybe I'm biased, but at the end of the day, like, I literally got emotional at certain points he was using all those right words, Canada, the things I want to hear, the things that are important to me. And I feel like today was just like, it's just masterful. And, sometimes when you stand up and it's obviously Trump hated Trudeau. It's obvious that there was a dynamic there that was dysfunctional for our country and our relationship. But Carney's a serious dude. Like, he's a serious dude. And Trump knows it. And Trump knows that we are masters of our own destiny. And he also knows that we're never going to be the 51st state. It's a ridiculous thing. And he also knows that he needs us. Yeah. And that's what I read today. Trump is now acknowledging that he needs Canada.
Well, I think Trump has heard a whole lot from a whole lot of people who are watching the stock market crash and auto futures and, his billionaire buds going, buddy, take the foot off the gas when it comes to the auto industry and other trade. Then we're also hearing all the mayors are having a meeting in, I think, New York, somewhere near Vancouver, both sides of the border. They're about to issue a statement to the White House about the deleterious nature of these tariffs on all their communities. So there's pushback in the stock market. There's pushback, I'm sure, from some of Trump's buddies. And you also have the dynamic of Carney, which is what I was counting on. My reaction when I saw Trump's post was I expected a lot from Carney. This is more than I expected. But I expected that Mark Carney was going to make Trump wait. And as I explained to a certain columnist at The Sun today, people who are in business understand what it is to say you're walking away from the table like Carney did yesterday, to be able to be in a position of leverage to make a good deal the next day. I mean, that's how negotiation works, right? So all this BS about, oh, but yesterday that he broke up with them and today he said, no, it's called negotiation. It's called business. And Trump, if he respects anything in this world, it's money and business acumen. And so that is what Mark Carney brought to the table. So it was so interesting because as I was waiting for the outcome of this meeting, I was sitting at a classic retro diner in Hamilton, aware that probably a lot of the people in that diner were going to vote for Poilievre, at least until a couple of weeks ago. And as I sat there and thought about it, I was like, there's something in me, and I guys, I don't want to go over the line on this because I am a skeptic, but there's something in me that thinks that Mark Carney knows how to play this. He knows how to play the next 30 days. He's been careful. He's been rigorous. He's been statesperson-like. He's been energetic, but he hasn't been, foolish. And I sat there and I thought, even if the people in this diner were always planning on Poilievre because they were angry about a host of things with Trudeau, he might do a good enough job with Trump that changes their calculus. What do you think about that, Mark?
Well, I think you're seeing this transformation across the board with people who, they parked their vote with Poilievre because they just hated Trudeau. It was Trudeau derangement syndrome. And I'm not saying Trudeau didn't deserve it. At the end of the day, it was time for him to go. I have a theory about why he waited so long, but I see this. I'm talking to people who were like, you know, yeah, Pierre all the way. It's time. We need a change. Blah 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 blah. And now they're like, hey, like, and if you look at Pierre, he hasn't been able to pivot. They're lost in their messaging. They don't know what to do, and he looks lost. Like I watched his press conference yesterday, where he's talking about TFSA, topping up TFSA. If Trump screws us economically, people aren't going to have an extra $5,000 to throw in a freaking TFSA. So really tone deaf, really. Oh, so they try to put in Canadian firms, whatever, right? Like but he looks so lost, like he doesn't know what to do. And yesterday was another bombshell with Corey Kenney speaking to the Empire Club in Toronto and basically saying, hey, our internal polling for Doug Ford shows that the Liberals are going to sweep Ontario. Listen, this was very, very strategic and very deliberate. And I'll tell you why I think so. Doug Ford is tired of Danielle Smith. Doug Ford has had enough of Danielle Smith's antics. And what we have in Canada is this, while we have a Conservative Party, we also still have this polarization of East-West Conservatives, right? And the Ontario East Conservatives are fucking done with this Alberta, bullshit, right? Not playing Team Canada, not being on Team Canada. Danielle Smith tanking Poilievre's campaign, doing all these things to hurt his campaign for her own narcissism and ego. And I think, if I'm Doug Ford, right, and I got this guy coming in who's only focused on Alberta and who is promising massive austerity, and I'm a provincial government that relies on federal partnerships, right? My guy's Carney, right? My guy's like my guy's Carney. I can talk to this guy. Doug's also very good friends with Chrystia Freeland. So I think you're seeing the local PCs in Ontario I'm not saying they're trying to tank Pierre's campaign, but I think what they're doing is they're basically saying, I know, they are, right? They are. And I just love it. So
they let the story leak. I want to go to Keith, but they let the story leak that Poilievre tried to get Ford on board last week and Ford said no. How did that come out, right? If not intentionally. And then having this last night where they said, basically, I think the F word was used in the speech, was it not? Like, you're fucked, Poilievre, if you don't start to get on the ballot question. That's not subtle coming from the Ford team. Keith, what was your take on both that and the polls for Poilievre and Carney? And I want to get to the Alberta thing because, oh my God, guys, do we have stuff to talk about? But go ahead, Keith.
Well, Corey tonight, the Ford campaign guy who released these numbers at the Albany Club. I mean, was the Albany? Anyway, released these numbers to a bunch of. Me too. It doesn't matter who the audience was. It was intended for Poilievre campaign. I think Mark's theory here is just bang on. I think that's a really brilliant strategy for them. But tonight, what he was saying here was the language he used was, all the alarms are going off in the plane, all the buzzers are going, and it's pull up, pull up, pull up. And they're not. He said Poilievre has been unable to pivot. And that's what I've taken away so far from this campaign, that he's still running a traditional, time for a change. Let's talk about tax cuts and let's talk about this and that. And the campaign is Donald Trump. And this is where Mark Carney just boom. He's laser focused on that. And I think, even Poilievre knows that when it just comes right down to it, a lot of Canadians, if not the majority, view Carney as the stronger of the two candidates to take on Donald Trump. And the result we saw today with Trump, coming out and treating Carney as the sitting prime minister and referring to him as, still being the prime minister after the election, that's not an endorsement or anything. It just means, people in the White House are reading the polls and talking to Trump. But it does mean as well that Carney got that respect that he demanded. And he spoke, as you say, very passionately about trying to get that. And what has Poilievre gotten other than he's somehow annoyed Trump without Trump ever learning his name? But it's the Poilievre campaign.
He stupidly said negative things about him. That was Trump's quote about Poilievre. But let me just push back a little bit, not on you, Keith, but on these polls, right? So, Mark, you put up something on social the other day that had, originally Poilievre was tracking at 98% probability of becoming the prime minister, it's down to 1%, which is, if true, the most insane nosedive, to use the airplane metaphor to extend it, Keith. That's insanity level of failure, right? I mean, the knives will be out on April 28th for Poilievre. We'll probably never hear from the guy again. It'll be so bad. And I'm talking, of course, metaphorically, the long knives of a political party. But my point is this. I also see the big rally in Hamilton, the big rally out in Surrey, a lot of, people who are, there's a lot of paid bots that come at me all day long, but in between all the garbage crap, I do see some true Poilievre supporters. They're not going to let go of the love they had for the guy. Are we to believe the polls, Keith? You've been doing this for a very long time, or should we be very cautious with any kind of prediction?
I always like to watch the trends in the polls as opposed to the very specific numbers. And the trends have been very clear. I mean, since January 6th, when the Liberals were on their deathbed and even the paddles weren't going to bring them back to life. And then, Trudeau resigned. Trump got inaugurated. Carney got elected as Liberal leader and immediately killed the carbon tax, or promised he was going to do that. Those things combined to just sort of, it's amazing to look at the polls because they're literally like this. I mean, the Conservatives just started tanking and the Liberals just started climbing. And I think Mark referred to it earlier about parked votes. Yes, there was so much anger and hatred at Trudeau, including from Donald Trump, who clearly hated the man. But within Canada, there was so much hatred for that people were just absolutely going to vote for the next Conservative leader, because that's what we do in Canada. We elect a Liberal government for 2 or 3 terms, and we throw them out and elect a Conservative government for 2 or 3 terms. The leaders kind of almost maybe irrelevant at some point. But at this point, the leadership has become the key issue, and Poilievre hasn't been able to pivot. His campaign sounds like this attack dog stuff, where he himself is posting about how Carney may have fudged his thesis for his doctorate. Oh my God, this is the kind of stuff you're going to put out when you're running for prime minister. I personally reviewed Carney's thesis, and I tell you, it's fine. I mean, this is kind of stuff does not appeal to the average Canadian or the average voter who's looking at right now. What we need is, a Conservative who's going to offer them more than the old platitudes and the slogans. And he's still talking about axing the complete carbon tax. Well, good God, man.
So this is
find a new message.
A couple of fun moments, because it's been a slog. We get some fun here.
But back to your polls. I'm sorry, I didn't give you the thing in the polls, but basically with the Liberals, because their vote is so widespread, when they're at in the low 40s, they're in a majority government territory. The Conservatives almost need to be 5 points ahead before they're in the majority government territory, because their vote is very, very concentrated in specific areas, i.e. the West, Alberta. So it really does matter that the polls are showing that the Liberals are just pretty much everyone now is having the Liberals coming out on top. The people have abandoned the Conservatives to a core degree. Now, this may be why Poilievre is sticking to his message, because he wants to keep those people that are still coming out to his rallies, and they are coming out in larger numbers than Carney gets. Yeah. That doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things other than someone's a really good organizer, but it does show that people do care about what Poilievre is saying, that his message still absolutely has a base. Is it 30% of Canadian voters? Is it 40? This is what he's pushing for, or Conservative voters, rather. I mean, is it that smaller group, or is it a larger core of that group? That's what they have to determine. But I think that's why they're having trouble pivoting, because they don't want to lose those people while they pivot to getting a better message.
So can I just a couple of fun little notes on this? One is, it's not just the national polls. It's not just the Poilievre versus Carney personality, likability polls, which matters when it becomes a concentrated leadership question. But it's also in Poilievre's own riding. That crisscross of the polling is happening in his riding. I mean, it's starting to, right? It's going like this. And that's with, I think it's Bruce Fanjoy who is running. And he's kind of running this plucky, fundraising nationally just to actually make Poilievre lose his seat, which would just be icing on the cake for people who can't stand Poilievre. But and Mark, I want to go to you on this, because you've worked on the comms side. When you see a leader go to the podium like Poilievre did this week, and the actual new slogan that they tried to put up, they screwed it up, because for 2 years he's had us look at 3-word slogans, right? So we're conditioned to see axe tax, jail not bail, blah, 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 the Dr. Seuss book of Poilievre's campaign. And then all of a sudden we see tax on homes, axe the sales. He's trying to say axe the home sales or whatever. But the way it came across was hilarious. And you don't make those kind of mistakes when your campaign is running going at full gas. You make those kind of mistakes when everyone is freaking out. I mean, it's stupid, but it's not the only one. He did a presser, he did a Q&A avail in, I think, BC, and his answers were nonsensical to this guy. And it was just all slogans. And the people in the back looked like they were cringed out. I mean, that is a campaign from just my looking at the optics and at the stagecraft that is losing itself. It is spiraling. Your thoughts?
I just want to close the loop on the polling. I will just say one thing about polling. Carney's polling 12% higher than his party. And when the leader is polling higher than the party, traditionally in Canada, that has resulted in majority government. So I'm gonna leave that there. I'm also seeing you know, a lot of people in the financial sector where I work have all of a sudden had a come to Jesus moment. All of a sudden, like for the last year, I'm like, no, and then all of a sudden they're like, now literally executives are predicting that Carney will win the next election. So other than that, Pierre's campaign's falling apart, and the reason why, his campaign manager is running his campaign into the ground. They don't know how to pivot. They are in utter chaos. They cannot meet the moment. And I agree with Keith. I believe at this point they are trying to save the furniture. They have a massive war chest to be able to pull off these 4,000 people things. They can bust people in. They can bring in, you know, people from all over the place to make it look, you know, focus on regional events where you can bring all kinds of people in, and they have the money to do it, right? They have a massive war chest. So it is all pomp and circumstance, right? But at the core of the campaign, in the minds of Canadians, none of that matters. Some of the nefarious kind of social platforms that are running these things about Carney somehow being a pedophile because at one point in time he was in a picture with Ghislaine Maxwell, and they're running this shit, right? That is desperation, man. That is complete and utter desperation. So all I see out of that campaign right now is desperation. And you know, to Corey Tenecny's credit, I mean, maybe he's trying to be helpful. You know, he's a smart guy. Like, you know, he's a smart guy. Like, maybe he's trying to be helpful, or, you know, but like they're not getting the message. And if anything, the egos that are running that campaign are not going to listen to anybody else because they think they're right. And
well, and let's put it this way, though. We've always talked about the fact that Ford sees himself as heir apparent to lead the federal Conservatives, right? He wants to be Prime Minister, Ford, theoretically, no matter what he says. Because I remember an interview him and his brother did back with Mansbridge way back in the day when they talked about being Prime Minister, right? So I think it's always been on the Fordian radar. And when it comes to Poilievre, maybe that message that was sent was to say, please don't decimate the entire party for a generation with this crap. Like, we'd like to pick it up in a couple of years, right? As soon as you get kicked out of leadership, we're the next guy, and we don't want to have to start from the bottom, like Bonnie had to do. So I think that could be in there as well. Okay, guys, so we can see Poilievre spinning out. And today was, whatever that movie was, a very bad, ucky, terrible, the worst, whatever day for Poilievre. When it comes to the war chest saving him, the Liberals had their best single day of fundraising ever, I believe, on the first day of this campaign. I have no doubt that if Mark Carney wants to get some funds pumped into the campaign from donors, they can get it. So I don't think money is going to play much of a factor in this. And I just want to give the Liberal campaign now, if we can switch some advice.
Yeah.
They're doing a great job, but here's where they're kind of failing, right? So there's the air war, which Carney is winning. I think we can establish that. Their ads are great. The Mike Meyers ad was a, beautiful thing. It got 10 million views on X just in 24 hours, let alone all the pickup in the US. It was on all the shows. Absolute master stroke to make him the Canadian candidate. It was great. Their brand is great. Their air war is top notch. Video production, top notch. Speeches, top notch. They need the bigger crowds, because one of the ways that Trudeau won majority in 2016 with Sunny Ways was he started to have those massive rally ads that made him look like, the next Kennedy. That's important. It's important. And the other thing is, I posted, so I tried to get a Mark Carney Canada Strong sign for my lawn, because this is about the leaders. This is about the brand. This is not about the local candidates, some of which are being parachuted in because they didn't realize they could win this thing. So it's a scramble on the ground game. They need to get out signs that say Mark Carney Canada Strong, vote Liberal. They need those signs, because I know NDP voters who would put those on their lawn rather than go against a local NDP candidate for a local Liberal candidate. They need to tie the national brand and the Carney popularity to the local races on the ground. And when I got sick of waiting. So I reached out to someone locally and said, can you get me a big ass sign for my lawn? Like, I'm not going to wait one more day before I can start pushing my neighborhood towards Mark Carney. And I got a call back and all the rest of it. And they said, oh, well, we're getting there. And then online, I had maybe 50 people tell me that they're trying to get lawn signs and they can't get a response from the local Liberal office. So please do not lose the ground game just because you're winning the air war. There's a ground war you need to fight. Whoever wants, do you want to pick that up, Keith? Agree, disagree?
Oh no, I agree completely. It's the basics. It's the door knocking, and when you've got volunteers out door knocking as opposed to paid volunteers who can't answer any questions when they knock at the door, they don't even know the candidate's real name. I mean, the ground game is core, and this is why you see the Green Party never gets anywhere, because people like a lot of what they have to say, but they have zero ground game to get the vote out, to get people to, so it's the Liberals and the Conservatives and the NDP, especially with the unions' help, that's where they're going to get their ground game out. I think those two big unions coming on to help the NDP. But for all of them, it's crucial. And for you just giving them the advice there, I hope they realize how valuable that advice is. Get those Mark Carney Liberal signs. I mean, as you say, tie them to the local. This is what you need to do right now. He's popular. He's rising. Go with it. Use it. Take it to your advantage. All of that is so important. As you say, the air war, and you can't count anything out. I mean, we're only at the end of the first week, right? Am I wrong? Is it still just the first week of this campaign?
And also, may I just say, I do not work for the Liberal Party of Canada. I was going to say they couldn't afford me, but maybe they can now. I don't know. But I don't work for political parties. I'm giving this advice for free as a brand and communications expert. I gave this advice to two people running to be MPs in two different local ridings who I know personally. I'm like, can you feed it up the chain? You guys are missing a national connection in this campaign.
Okay, so I'm gonna be a little, as someone who's worked on multiple campaigns,
Yeah.
both on the in office and then out of office. The difference here is that up until this week, right? I don't know if Carney got elected. We didn't see a lot about him, but I don't know if Canadians were yet convinced that they wanted to get behind this campaign. And I think that groundswell has happened very organically and very fast. And I don't think that the Liberals had the infrastructure locally or anywhere to sort of like get their shit together, because they just, they were all preparing for a doomsday scenario, and people were getting out and they're like, I don't want anything to do with this, man. I don't want to be on the losing side. All of a sudden, the winning side. Well, winning motivates people. And I bet you that you're going to see a groundswell, and it's going to happen very quickly. You're going to see volunteers showing up to campaign offices to make calls, to knock on doors, to deliver signs. You're going to see orders happening quickly to get those signs out, and it's going to be a rush. I think that's the difference. The Conservatives are so good at this. They are so good at this, at planning, because no matter where you are, they always do fairly well. It's not like they get decimated, right? Like they haven't, in Ontario, they always win 40 to 50 seats, right? Or 40 seats, or whether they're a majority or they're a minority, they always do fairly well. So they have very good ground game, and they have mastered get out the vote. Like that's where I would really want to push the Liberals, because nobody does get out the vote better than the Conservatives. And their voters are so it's a cult. Like they are voting no matter what. So that's going to be really important for the resources that you're talking about.
Well, there's an old expression, right, that Conservatives fall in line and Liberals fall in love. And when Liberals don't fall in love, well, you've never heard that? So that's why they're always an army ready to march, and the liberals are like, no, he's not perfect. She's not
Yeah.
perfect. So I think liberals have fallen in love with Carney, which is
Yeah.
why you see Sean Fraser coming back into the Big Tent,
Right.
right? It's why you see some of their stars coming back in. They didn't think they were going to win this, so they were not recruiting top tier candidates. And now that they are probably going to win this, the top tier candidates are coming back. But that ground game, listen, I'm not an expert in ground game. I'm an expert in messaging. And all I know is that they are missing their most powerful messaging
I agree
value
with you.
proposition to the people of Canada. They need to tie Mark Carney's brand because he is the individual who has been overperforming internationally. They need to tie that brand, that Canada strong, that I can make Donald Trump call us Canada again. They
Right.
need that brand on the lawns because people will then tie it to the sub brand of the local liberal MP wannabe. But until that happens, and they're even parachuting in people, right? Which is never a good play on the ground locally. So, liberals, it's great to be looking good. It's good to have good polls. It's fun to watch the Conservatives suffer a little bit because it's been pretty obnoxious the last 2 years. But if you don't start knocking on the doors, if you don't start dropping off the signs, if you don't start to leverage that brand equity that you have nationally and internationally and localize it with actual tactical stuff, then, I don't want to be sitting here with you guys on April 29th going, how did this happen?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I noticed that.
go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I noticed Sean Fraser made sure that he had Carney standing beside him and the young family, his children, that he, I guess, has spent enough time with in the last couple of months as he reversed his decision. But he absolutely, he had to justify. Remember, it was a big deal. He just couldn't get enough time with his family. That's why he was leaving politics.
Yeah.
And now that Carney has recruited him to come back and has promised him a better work-life balance. And I'm sure he has to some degree. But if you're a cabinet minister in Ottawa, representing a Nova Scotia riding, you're going to have a shitty work-life balance. I don't care how much they're promising you, and you know it if you've already been a cabinet. He's had two major portfolios, so he knows what the game is here. But he's coming back because they're winning. They have a chance, not just a chance. It looks like they're absolutely going to win. The Atlantic region in particular, which had gone, was all painted blue there for the polls up till January, is now looking like it's traditional red again. I mean, all over all the Atlantic provinces. So I think that's why we're seeing these Liberal candidates come back. These retired or not going to run again candidates have decided, oh, maybe I will reoffer. I mean, it just seems, and Carney's right to recruit them to do so. Yeah. Because the name recognition always helps, especially in a local race like that. And people go, oh, Sean Fraser, he did a great, they're not going to, say, oh, he just, no, they're going to elect him because they elected him last time and they like him. I mean, that's what you're dealing with here. So I think it's smart, as you say, again, to just keep Carney as close to all of these candidates as you can, brand them with him. That's your strength right now. I mean, for a man, remember at the beginning of the campaign, way back last week, when he was untested, he'd never been on the ice. We don't know how he's going to perform. Well, he's performing pretty strong. I mean, yeah, he gets a bit chippy and he's a bit stiff. Well, he's a banker. He's not, not a lifelong politician.
He was good on the ice with the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, the guy.
Oh, yes. Overall, a pretty strong campaign for a guy who's never run for any office whatsoever. Running for Prime Minister with the people on the plane, unlike Pierre Poilievre. The reporters are right on the plane. They're with you every step of the way, for all the fumbles as well as the good times. So it's not easy.
Yeah.
No one really wants that kind of level of scrutiny, but that's what you get for 36 days in a federal campaign. And the first week, man, gangbusters so far. I mean, he's really done as strong as you could expect.
Objectively, he did, and I've been saying to all the people who said, oh, he's just Kamala of the North. No, Kamala never got to be president to show us for 9 days what she would look like in that office. I knew that if Carney got to show what that looked like, he would set the brand, right? He went over to Europe. He made all kinds of deals. He brought in new tech from Australia. The guy worked it, and then they put out a video saying, look what we did in 9 days. Now we're going to go to an election and ask for your vote. It was a strategically very smart play, but it had to be backed up with action, with productivity. So when Carney has made some of his speeches, you guys know I'm a bit of a critic. I train people in this stuff. One of them was Masterclass, how he responded to a reporter out west who came at him. It was very early early in the campaign, but he didn't accept the premise of the reporter or the positioning of the question. He answered it with fact. He answered it with a meta level analysis. It was very, very strong pushback, right? And when the reporter tried to say at the end, so you're saying it's a no, he said, no, what I'm saying is I'm giving you an informed response to your question. Like it was good. And so when you have, yes, stiff, sure. He's not schlocky. But when you have a competency and a calm in the time of storm, like Canada is like, you remember that movie Perfect Storm? It kind of feels like that some days these days, right? With everything going on in the world.
There's a different ending.
Yeah, different ending. No, but that's what I'm saying is you want a competent captain, not one that's greedy and goes for more fish, one that knows, I got to weather this storm and bring the ship home. And so it feels as though Carney is this calm, competent hand on the rudder. And as Canadians, I don't want to get too excited that this is a done deal for all the reasons we just articulated. But I certainly feel a sense of calm with him that I don't get with Poilievre because, guys, the audio tape where we literally had Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta, say on the freaking tape that Pierre Poilievre's perspective will be very much in sync with the new direction of America, with fascism, with taking people without any due process and putting them in a concentration camp in El Salvador and then doing concentration camp porn about it to threaten everybody else. A country that is taking people's phones at the border and deporting people with no notice who haven't done anything wrong. That is not what we want in Canada. That new direction absolutely sucks. It's the stuff of nightmares. And so no Canadian wants the new direction of America. We do not want to see our entitlement programs or things like the pension plans we paid into our whole careers being cut. We do not want a doging of Canada. We do not want the oligarchy to take over our country. So the new direction of America is a dystopian Orwellian nightmare. And for Danielle Smith to say on tape that Pierre Poilievre is very much in sync with that new direction should terrify every Canadian. It should send a chill up thy spine that says, whatever I thought about the last 10 years, whatever I think about Trudeau, however much I hate the Liberals, and whatever I like about Poilievre, no damn way am I going to let that new direction of MAGA America come to Canada. That is what this is. As I talked to a business leader this morning, it is an existential threat. All past partisan considerations in this country don't matter anymore. All our pet peeves and all of our issues are irrelevant if we cede our country to the fascist MAGA movement. So, I've been waiting to say that.
I just wanted one of the things in addition to Danielle Smith laying this out, it was one of the things that Corey Tonight, the conservative strategist from Ontario, said as well, that Poilievre is perceived as too Trump. He uses his lexicon. He tries with the slogans. He said, "This is just not a good look for you. This is not what you want to be perceived as too Trump anywhere in the world, perhaps maybe outside the White House." But this is, so I was surprised that we haven't heard more from Poilievre putting some sort of distance between that comment from Danielle Steele and him.
Smith. It sounds like a Danielle Smith.
Excuse me. Oh my God. I am so old. I just flopped it. Excuse me.
It's okay.
I have name dyslexia, so thank you for correcting me on that.
But it is.
Go ahead, Mark. Bail me out of this.
Listen,
sorry.
I've had a little bit of a, obviously November 5th was a horrifying day. Yes. The last few months have been utterly chaotic and stressful and depressing, and it's just anxiety driven. But in many ways, Trump may have done us a massive fucking favor by showing us where the right is right now, where the people like Donald Trump and Pierre Poilievre, I'm sorry, you're not separating yourself, brother. You are not getting a free pass after your, campaign manager wears "Make America Great" hats. I mean, people in your country, you had to be uncomfortable when a reporter asked you if you're telling your candidates not to wear Trump merchandise, and you're like, look, Trump may have done us a massive failure in this country in that he may have saved us
You said a
from the
massive failure or favor? I think that was for okay.
In
favor,
favor.
in that he may have saved us from following this insane movement to just throw everything up in the air and hope that it would come better when because I'm everything's more expensive now. It's got to be somebody else's fault. Like someone make it better. I get it. I'm not unsympathetic to affordability issues, but and Danielle Smith, God bless you, Danielle. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Please, I beg you. More.
So a couple quick thoughts on that. I'm never going to give Trump credit for saving a fucking thing. Let's just be clear. Never will he get the credit. I will give Canadians the credit of watching what's happening. And Trump is putting the contrast. Politics is about contrast. Trump has put the contrast in stark relief between what a MAGA dystopian fascist vision is when it's implemented, right? Project 2025, and what we have as a liberal small L democracy in Canada. Trump put it in stark relief. Canadians get the credit for opening our eyeballs and saying, holy shit, that is not what we want in this country. No way, no how. I don't care about the last 10 years. We ain't going down that path, right? So that credit goes to Canadians. But I will say this, the Poilievre, it's not just she went down to Breitbart and Danielle Smith did that tape where she not only said, Poilievre's perspective is very much in sync with the new direction of America. She also said, and this is the part where some people are calling it treasonous, or at least federal election meddling, interference, can you hold off on the tariffs because it's kind of helping the other guy. It's not helping our guy Poilievre. Bad. But then she goes back, of course, MAGA doubles down always. She goes back down, does this thing with Shapiro, a guy who said that Canada, we should all be working in Panama because our country's silly and we shouldn't exist. Whatever the hell he has said, that is not someone I'd put my arm around. She put out a post saying how excited she was to stand next to him, but also that they talked about finding candidates with mutual values or some shit. No, get away from fucking MAGA in the U.S. Don't hug the fascists and then expect the rest of Canada to be cool with you, Danielle. And they're not going to work like that. Go on. Sorry.
No, I was waiting for Keith to chime in. I mean, you explained what I was trying to say way more eloquently than I did. So thank you very much. That's exactly what I was trying to say.
Smith has not endeared herself to anyone in Canada other than perhaps Albertans, I guess. I mean, her staunch defense of her province is one thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of people in Alberta know as well she's really trying to distract from a bit of a health scandal there. But that's neither here nor there. Her cozying up to these hardcore MAGA stuff and then at the same time trying to extort a list of demands out of Carney when she finally met him.
Oh, that was great.
It was just insanity. I mean, this is a meeting with a man who's, just been elected prime minister, but he's running for office. I mean, and you literally present him with a list of demands where Alberta's out and we're not going to cooperate in any way with Team K. What the hell is this? Have you not, read the rest of the country? It's not just elbows up. People are pretty much, Canada is not broken. It's pretty unified in its feeling of its sovereignty, of its national identity, and of standing up to Trump. And so for her to be pushing this, almost appeasement type bullshit, really, really grates on the nerves, and refusing to play along with the Team Canada. All the premiers, they know that it's going to take some pain in some provinces to eliminate interprovincial trade barriers, which has to be done. If it's not done now, it's never going to be done. The momentum is actually, the impetus is there to actually get it done this time. But who's in the way? Who's in the way? Alberta. Well, we'll get you your pipelines. We'll get you out to market. I don't know about the emissions cap. I mean, there's got to be some negotiations on this, but there has to be Alberta playing alongside with the rest of the country when we stand up to Trump. If we've got the 25% auto tariffs, are they coming down to 12.5% now because they're going to be 50% U.S. parts? I mean, are we getting some headway? Who knows with this shit? We just aren't going to be able to know at any point. So we need to be unified and stand together in what we plan to do, and just roll with every day as to what Trump rolls out.
Do you know what I
The irony of that?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, I was just going to say the irony. Well, Keith brings up the list of demands last week, and the one that really caught my attention was the fact that she was basically demanding that the federal government build pipelines across every other province to get Alberta's oil to market on the East Coast or the West Coast. And I thought to myself, at the same time, you're not willing to be part of a Team Canada approach where in Ontario is potentially going to lose 500,000 jobs in the auto industry. It's so tone deaf to the idea of a united Canada. And I think at the end of the day, Albertans, I mean, yes, they're conservative leaning. You know, Nenchi's a great opposition leader. Who knows what will happen? They had NDP last time, but I think her time is running, because if she wants to separate from Canada, I will tell you, Albertans will have none of it.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I'm following a lot of Alberta accounts and talking to them a lot. So a couple of things on this. One is that I don't think it's appeasement with Danielle. I think it's thirsty AF. I think she wants to be part of the Trump team. It's
Right.
pathetic. It's pathetic on its face. It's pathetic in all iterations, right? I lived in Quebec during the first referendum, and it was stressful as a child, right? To vote no. I had the stickers in my sticker book, right? Stressful time. But we also weren't under attack by the biggest military and the biggest economy in the history of the world. We weren't under economic attack to break us, to own us, right? So to be pushing this division narrative, this separatist narrative, this do it or we leave narrative at a time when we are under attack, I think for most people is just below disgusting. I don't even know what that is, but it's something that is so non-Canadian that it's painful to watch. So Danielle Smith keeps making it worse for herself. She looks as though it's taken a toll. I mean, the pressure must be immense. And then you got Jason Kenney, who has decided that he's going to come out and be Team Carney. Obviously, he's trying to either position to have her gig or to pick up the pieces after Poilievre. You know, this is how conservatives play the game. Long knives to the front. You know, as I often say, liberals stab you in the back and NDP get in a circle and stab each other. But the conservatives, you see them coming. And so what are your thoughts on Kenney suddenly being Team Captain Canada guy?
Well, I think you nailed it. Like this is a next leader play, especially the fact that he referenced Ontario. And I thought, that was brilliant, right? He's like, what's at stake? And so I think it's quite obvious that people are already coming out and they've decided they've seen enough. Yeah. That it's over. And I'm just saying, like, I mean, there's a few weeks left. The only poll that matters is election day. But it clearly looks like people have seen enough. Yeah. And they're making their plays. Like you said, the knives to the front. Like, I think that was a big point of Kenney's play. And that was a big point of Corey Tenecny's speech yesterday. And it's a big reason why Doug Ford is not getting involved in the Poilievre campaign. It's like, in my mind, it's over.
Yeah.
Doesn't it say everything that Poilievre, who's been leader for 2.5 years, never had a phone conversation with the most successful conservative premier in the country until last week, when he apparently called looking for support and told him to blow it out his ass. I mean, that these two men have never talked tells you a whole hell of a lot, I think, about the type of campaign and government even that a Poilievre conservative administration would run. I mean, that he literally had never talked to Doug Ford. I don't care what your politics are. As the Progressive or as the Conservative Party of Canada leader, you've talked to every conservative premier, I would think, as many times as you can, and get their soundings and get their support and get their volunteers, get whatever you can. They never had a phone conversation.
Crazy.
That to me says so much about not just Poilievre, but the team around him and what they think is important and how they do business.
Even insightful. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, just sort of quickly, like Keith makes a really good point. Yeah. Even when Poilievre was poised to win a massive majority, there was no conversation. Like, you would think that he would reach out and say, hey, like, things are looking good. I hope we can work together, blah, 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 right? It's
yeah, I don't just say it for the alliteration, and I'm not trying to name call, just trying to characterize it as I see. He's petty. He's petty and he's peevish, right? Yes. There's peevishness about Poilievre. He wouldn't want petulant, peevish, and petty. You're tickling the parts of my language brain. But the point is that he doesn't seem like we want to see in a leader, somebody who can get past petty grievances, who can get past petty power plays, who knows how to position for strength and with unity. And what we're seeing with Carney is he met with Danielle Smith despite what she was up to. right? He's not
Yep.
afraid to meet. He's not afraid to discuss. He's not afraid, it would appear, of anything. And I have to say, just from a stagecraft perspective, there were some images in the last week that were very powerful on a subconscious level. When you saw him having his meeting underneath that Canadian aircraft, that military aircraft, that was trying to look like a Canadian version of a situation room, like a military leader vibe. When you saw them descend that staircase, I mean, these are classic power positions that top CEOs do. And he is taking the country's crisis as I want my best clients to do, calmly, thoughtfully, fearlessly, articulating a consistent message with vision and action so people know what to do and how to do it. It's incredibly important to communicate well in a crisis, to not get caught off guard by things, to not go off track, but to clearly repeat the vision. And I think what a lot of Canadians are really responding to, if we can go psychographic for a second here, is they want to feel less stressed about all of this. There are cortisol levels in our brains similar to March of 2020 when the pandemic was starting. That's how stressful it's been to hear America wanting to take us, right? So they want someone, much like Trudeau was able to do in the early days of COVID, where he was reassuring. Carney is reassuring Canadians in a different way, from not a position of I'm going to take care of you, from a position of we are going to take this moment of crisis and we're going to turn it into opportunity. We're going to go from where we were to being stronger and a superpower. He used the word superpower, and then he backed it up with a plan to get a single economy out of 13 by Canada Day. So we're seeing from Carney the kind of visioning and leadership communications that I train my clients in, that I admire when I see it from leaders who are very, very good at what they do. And so I think for Canadians, there's this sign out there that says, keep calm and Carney on. I think Canadians are kind of like going to bed at night and going, oh, at least Mark Carney's working on this. Guys, last thoughts?
Well, I think it's good, no matter what, that Canadians have a real clear choice. And this is an election campaign where we're going in. The NDP are virtually not even an issue. We're talking about head-to-head Liberals versus Conservative Party of Canada. And how do you feel about this? The Conservative Party has articulated a number of positions that a lot of people will indeed agree with and vote for. But they have not managed to put a leader in place. I would say he's the least popular or least charismatic, if you would, leader that they have of their last three or four.
I think he's charismatic, Poilievre. I think he's charismatic in an opposition, MAGA, social media, Trumpian kind of way.
Okay, well, it's lost on me. I find him charismatically challenged. But it's that old, proverbially, would you sit down and want to have a beer with this guy? I don't know if I'd want to sit down and have a beer with Carney. Well, I wouldn't want to have a beer with either one of them, quite frankly. I don't know if Carney's sitting, maybe when he's on the hockey rink, maybe it could be that kind of thing. But I think, as I say, I think it's good that we have a real clear choice this time. I mean, in ridings where the Democrats are going to try to hold on to, maybe half the seats they had, maybe come out with 12 in official party status, they're going to take some hard work in those ridings. But in the rest of Canada, we're looking at pretty much a two-party race. And I think that's really good for government, really good for Canadians. It gives you, I'm not voting against something. I'm voting for something. I'm voting because I believe in this. I believe he's going to be the better person to handle this, or these are the issues I want addressed. So I think overall, ignore the polls if you want at this point. It's going to be tight. It's going to be close. The fact that that's pivotal in 6-8 weeks that the polls have changed that much means that in the next 4 weeks, they can change that much again. Yeah. So let's watch and see what happens. Let's not count anything as being a sure thing, but let's count it as being a great thing for Canada. Look how united Canada has become. Yep. And the election's not dividing us any further. It's just putting people into different political camps. But so what? Canadians don't hate the person in the other political camp. We just disagree with them. And that's going to be fine as well. So I'm really encouraged overall by the tone of this and by the set of the election, and especially encouraged by Trump just coming out and being normal today. It's a huge achievement for us when he's talking about Canada in just a normal business-like tone. I think that's a fantastic achievement. And to your point about relieving the stress, that might just help people go just ease it just a little bit. Hey, he didn't call him governor. It clearly was. He really, really did dislike Justin Trudeau.
Yeah. And also, as we said, Carney commands respect.
Yep.
He commands respect by not only his success in his career and his extremely impressive resume, but he commands respect in terms of his discipline. and his focus and his clarity of vision. These are things that command respect. You don't have to care what party he's with. If he was running for the Conservative leadership at this time, I'd be looking at the Conservative Party for a vote, because he is the kind of leader that seems like might come along generationally at a time of crisis. I mean, we're lucky that Mark Carney is in this position. And as long as Canadians continue to expect a lot, I think he'll continue to produce a lot. I think that's just who he is. And I think that he very much loves Canada. And I put out this little analogy where I said, you know, imagine your village is being threatened by invaders and they're at the gate, and you've united behind a strong, competent leader. And then some other guy runs up and says, it's your fault this is happening, not the invaders, because you're stupid. And you know what? We're too weak to take on this fight. I mean, that is Carney, the first guy, and Poilievre is the second. And so I think down on just on a cellular level, people say, I feel attacked. I feel under threat economically in terms of my sovereignty, my democracy. I want the leader at the gate of my village who is strong and focused and clear and can unite us, not the person who is telling us, like an abuser tells, you know, their partner, you're weak, it's your fault, you need me because you can't do this because of how weak you are. Who the hell wants to hear that message at a time when you feel vulnerable to attack? So I think just on a cellular level, Mark, people are responding to Mark Carney going, oh God, please. You know?
Well, the last, you know, to wrap this up with a bow, I mean, you know, unfortunately for Poilievre, he invested the entire 2.5 years in saying everything was broken, that this country sucked, that this country was shit, and that, you know, it needed a massive, you know, it needed him to save it from, you know, 10 years of liberal whatever, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, Trump shows up and it starts threatening our sovereignty and starts, you know, bashing us. And then you have, like you said, you know, this massive reunification of the country and people, you know, feeling their pride. I mean, in my neighborhood, people have Canadian flags in their windows. I have a Canadian flag. It's crazy. I've never seen this. We took our flag back from the COVID people, right? And the anti-COVID people. And people are proud now to wear Canadian apparel and put the flag out and everything. And Poilievre has been unable to adapt to that message. And voters, all they remember from him is Canada's broken, Canada's broken, Canada's broken, Canada's broken, because he shoved it on our face over and over and over and over and over again. And he can't. That's why it's so hard to pivot. So, yeah, I mean, Ford figured it out. Ford called that early election because he saw an opportunity, a window to take advantage of a very focused situation of Donald Trump and sovereignty and all this stuff going on. And like, holy crap, I don't have to talk about anything else. All I have to talk about is this. And Carney elected, they called the election right away. They saw the same thing. And this is just, it's all fallen apart for Pierre. It's you know, it's unfortunate, but I think at the end of the day, I mean, maybe it's divine providence. That's all I'm saying.
Whatever the hell it is that is getting us possibly out of the clutches of MAGA, I'm happy about. And you know, as Canadians, it was always there. Last time we saw it expressed was the Joe Canada Molson Canadian ads years ago. The Mike Meyers, I just got to give some love to Mike Meyers. He did the elbows up on SNL. He set the battle cry, and he has put in all in to support Mark Carney at risk. I'm sure he's lost some fans over it, right? But I think that's what proud Canadians need to do in this moment. We all need to dig deep. We all need to say, what more can I do to ensure, not about political party, to ensure that we have a competent, trusted leader who loves our country, who knows how to build relationships, who is globally respected, who can not only hit the ground running, he already has, but can get us in a stronger position as a country for a new era of Canadian prosperity. Carney's not saying he'll save us. He's saying he's going to take us to new heights we never even thought possible. And he said, as any good leader does, it's going to be difficult. We're going to have to do things faster that we never even dreamed we could do or would be doing. He's telling us that this is going to be an effort, that this is going to be a sacrifice. I mean, that's leadership, right? So I think that I don't ever vote for parties. I don't vote for platforms because that's all just bullshit.
Bullshit.
I vote for, it changes the second they get in. I vote for leadership character because when a crisis hits, whatever it might be, another pandemic, God knows what's coming our way. After 2020, everything's up for grabs. Right? But I want a leader who I know is going to wake up in the morning and think, not how can I attack and diminish and degrade, but how can I build? How can I inspire? How can I take action and get a team together to get the results? That's what I see in Mark Carney, and that's what I think Canadians hopefully are going to be voting for. Listen, you guys are amazing. Thanks for taking the time. I have no idea how long we went, but we had so much to talk about. And all of you across Canada who are watching this stuff, the OShow, please share. You do a tremendous job sharing our clips. We love it. Subscribe so we can keep this conversation robust and patriotic and democratic. Super important we stay democratic. Thank you so much, guys. The Scandal Panel, Keith, Leslie, Mark Cripps, Danielle Steele made an appearance at one point.
Sorry about that.
All right, guys.
When you care about current affairs, it's on the OShow. And when you want to get clear what's going on here, it's on the OShow. If you like to stay in the know, tune yourself into the OShow. It's the OShow. Laura Babcock's the OShow. With a lot of great guests, she puts them to the test on the OShow. There's no doubt they'll be calling them out on the OShow. Stand for something or fall for it all. Ontario, hear the call on the OShow. It's a podcast, the OShow. Laura Babcock's the OShow. Stay informed with the OShow, OShow.
Your merch bin.